Today I got Justin Rogers from Forever Self-Employed on the channel. Justin, thanks for stopping in.
Hey man, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Hey, dude, I'm glad that you were able to make it today. So, hey, I got like 5 questions for you. First question I want to ask is what type of equipment is needed, and could you start this type of business for about $1,000?
Right. So I get this question all the time, and really the most entry basic level equipment you can use to get started. So that's basically what I did. There was a pressure washer in my dad's garage. It was a 2.5 gallon a minute Honda engine, Simpson pressure washer, something that like you'd walk into Lowe's or Home Depot and you'd get that like summer special or like that spring like clean your house special, just a residential washer. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and start pressure washing and adding the service in because I was already doing landscaping. So really, you can get started for $1,000, like you said. With the pressure washer, you might be in for 250. You can get a service cleaner if you'd like. The thing is when you're dealing with some of the lower end service cleaners, they tend to break a little bit more often, so that gets a little bit annoying. So whenever I first started, I was using those, but they were breaking all the time. So then I would just end up wanding the whole driveway. And if anybody's ever seen my channel, they've seen me wanding a whole bunch of stuff. It like really irritates a lot of people, but I enjoyed it. And yeah, man, other than that, it comes with the hoses, comes with the gun. You got to get some gas cans, but you can really get started for, even under like $700 if you wanted to.
So you said that you were doing landscaping before that. Did you have like recurring clients with the landscaping?
So at the time, I really wasn't into like all of the service industry stuff. I really didn't know how to like optimize a business or like structure a business. Like I had no idea that I needed to be prioritizing my customers and keeping track of them and everything. So I was kind of doing like anybody who kind of gets started and does it as a side hustle does. I was just like in my free time rolling up on people's houses after they, hit me up on Facebook, and I'd give them a quote, I'd go do the job, and then I'd pretty much forget about them, and then I'd go find another job to do. So like over time though, I did build up recurring customers because they'd give me a call and they say, "Hey Justin, you did this for us last year," and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, great. You guys need me to come out and do some more work," and so I would. However, now I know that if you're running a business, you really should keep track of those customers, and you should be the one kind of reaching out once it gets to like about 9 months, 12 months since the previous cleaning.
How did you get your first job with the pressure washing?
So I basically leveraged my landscaping clients. So I'd go out and land a job. I was running Facebook ads at the time, and I'd do somebody's flower beds, and I'd say, "Hey, would you like to get a quote on the driveway while I'm here?" And honestly, I didn't even like doing houses at the time because houses were annoying because there's like so many different pieces to houses, and like you have to move furniture and you got to do all this kind of stuff. But if it was a driveway, it was super easy. All I'd do is I'd roll up and I'd hit the driveway and I'd roll out. So I'd do a landscaping job and I'd be like, "Hey, I also offer pressure washing. If you guys are interested, I can just give you a quote while I'm here." And a lot of times they take me up on it, and sometimes they'd even let me do the job. But I eventually started marketing towards pressure washing. But my first job would have probably come either from family member, friend, or somebody who I upsold from a landscaping job.
Cool. It's like minimal risk kind of to pressure washing the driveway too. If they're in the yard, I guess the driveway is kind of a natural progression. Can I clean the driveway as well without having to risk, windows or damaging siding or anything like that? So how did you start advertising after you leveraged like your landscaping clients? Like how did you expand outside of just primarily your landscaping clients?
Right. So I doing landscaping, I had like some business cards that I had made up. I had like a sign that I put on the truck, but primarily I just started with Facebook ads, and I was just landing jobs through Facebook ads. And then I got flyers when I started doing pressure washing, and I would hand out like, multiple neighborhoods a day until people would call me. And then I would do a job in the neighborhood and I'd say, "Hey, can you get me in on the neighborhood Facebook page?" Then from there, I would be able to land 2, 3, 4 more jobs after that. So I just kind of finagled my way in. And then once I was in, I would try to service those people every single year, and
That's
yeah,
great,
that's kind of
man.
how I did it.
So you just like kind of finessed your way in. I love it. I love it. You're giving away don't give away too much here. So when you started, like you said, had mentioned that you started doing the Facebook ads, which Justin actually has like a whole training course where he teaches his Facebook ads. So I'll go ahead and leave that link in the description below. But talking about ads, how much did you reinvest? Like sometimes, these pressure washing jobs, I mean, did you do it by a percentage or like monthly? You just expected to put a certain amount a month in. So some of these newer guys starting out, I don't think they realize you need to reinvest a lot of what you're making out the gate. So for you, did you have a strategy for this?
I didn't at the time, and I think the game was a little bit different. So, like around this time, it was probably about 2017, and the difference between 2017 and 2022 is I think the ad space is so much more oversaturated now than what it was back in that time. So the dollars back then went a lot farther than what they do now. I never had like a set, I'm going to put XYZ percentage from jobs back in. I would always kind of play with it. So if I needed jobs, I would just boost out, like 20, 30, $40 on ads. And then I would cut it off whenever I would land, 2, 3 jobs. And then I would do those jobs. And then I'd go ahead and I'd run some more ads. So that was just kind of how I did it. Not a good way to go, though. I would definitely recommend that if somebody was doing it now, they would take a percentage of all their jobs and dedicate it back into ad spend, just like you would do with taxes. You'd say 10 to 15% of this money is not even mine on every single job. So that way you always have money to put back in, because with ads, a lot of people have that, they're like risk averse, right? They don't want to waste their money. And when we view the ads as an investment rather than a risk, we can't lose, because if you view it as a casino, it's like very win lose. Like you either get the job or you don't get the job. But when it's just set, when it's like taxes and this money isn't even mine, it's going back into ads, you really have nothing to lose. And then you end up gaining more in the long term.
What you're saying is you take maybe just dedicate a certain amount of jobs throughout the month to just put all of that back in. And that'll just kind of, it'll fluctuate obviously because you have slow months and heavy seasons.
Right.
So,
Even if it was just 10 to 15%, you don't even have to complicate it. Like even if you get a free job, 10 to 15% goes back. Because I always tell people ads are the quickest way to scale. You cannot you can only pass out so many flyers in a day. You can only put out so many yard signs in a day, but the ads are running all night. Like ads, the only barrier to how many ads you can push out is the amount of money that you can put into them. So that's the best way to scale.
Yeah, and with digital marketing, it's great because you could target the type of clients that you want. So that brings us to our final question. What were the biggest obstacles when you started? I guess like a two-part question. What were the biggest obstacles when you started, and can anybody do this?
The biggest obstacle when I started, probably myself, and just the fact that I didn't know anything about pricing. Because what I did basically was I would just quote everything based on an hourly rate. And to me, I was just happy not to be working for somebody. So I'd be like, $25, $30 an hour is perfectly fine with me. So I'd like 4-hour job. I'm like, okay, great. That's 120. And honestly, now I know way better. I know I can get way more money than that. And, one of the benefits that I had at the time was I didn't have a lot of overhead, because I wasn't really treating it like a real business. It was more like a side hustle for cash. And so, the good thing about the internet and the good thing about people being able to see us doing these jobs is they can see the amount of money that can be made, and they can learn from that, and they can charge accordingly. So that was probably my biggest mistake, is I did not charge accordingly for a very long time. And I also didn't study on any of the processes that make doing the job easier, right? And I think you kind of did the same thing, right, Tim? It was kind of like a school of hard knocks, where you just got in there and you just started experimenting and figuring out what worked and what didn't. And
Yes, sir.
you probably learned over time that there was tricks to the trade, but it took so long to get there because you were just like hard headed, like me probably.
Well, for me, I'm always afraid of being like, what do they call it? Analysis paralysis. I could sit there and think about all of the things that could go wrong or might go wrong. Instead, I usually just choose to just jump in there and figure it out, because you never know what kind of opportunities will lend themselves to you while you're like on that journey learning, right? So I always think it's like a paid experience. You're almost getting paid to gain experience, but as you're saying, it's important to pay attention to the market, so you do adjust your prices accordingly, so you're not pricing yourself out of business. And with like the solar stuff and the pressure washing, there's so many things. I mean, there's everything needs to be washed, everything, there's so many panels, and there's just more and more things getting built, more and more concrete and asphalt going down. So it's like, don't be scared of the competition, just figure out a way to differentiate yourself or offer more value than the other guys, right?
Right. And
Don't be
was that the last half of the question, was should anybody get into it, or is there too much competition?
Or could anybody? I mean, like at age, or like, I mean, obviously it's a cheaper, hustle to get started with. So I guess like, an age, any gender can do something like this. Basically, it's not basically like for an older adult, or do you have to have experience or
Right. No, absolutely. Anybody can get into it. And you said any gender. Funny enough, we have a girl that's in the inner circle, and she did 6 figures her first 6 months in business. And so, like, it does not matter. This girl is a killer. Like, she has a strategy for landing jobs that is just like impeccable, and she does all of them in person, and she's like crazy good at selling. So her average ticket price is like well over $1,000 when like
Wow.
most people's would be around 500, just because she's so personable and she just kills it. And the thing is like, if you were a different demographic from the majority, use that to your strength, right? And who else can hire a girl? I don't know who I could
Yeah.
call to have a girl come wash my house. So for her, instead of using it as like a liability that like, oh, most men do this, she uses it as a strength. So she can relate better to women when she's quoting. Men feel more comfortable with her because they don't feel like she's going to take advantage of them just because it's
Yeah.
like innate, you know? So if you are like in one of those minorities, use it to your advantage. If you're younger, use that to your advantage. People want to
Absolutely.
see young hustlers going and getting it. So I think anybody can get into it. I think it's just like that first year is the biggest test. And if you can make it past the first year, the second is 10 times easier, and it only gets easier from there.
Yeah, great. So in classic fashion, you know, on your channel you always do a word of the day. So we're gonna go ahead and do that on this channel today. Is there a word of the day you want to pick?
What should the word of the day be? The word of the day is going to be pressure washing.
Pressure washing. All right. So if you guys are watching this far in the video, go ahead and put pressure washing in the comment section. I'll go ahead and link Justin's channel and the link to his course down below. Give us a thumbs up and a share if you like this. And until next time, you know,
Hustle hard and get that money, baby.
hustle hard, get that money. Mine is at the end of my videos, I always say anything's possible. So anything's possible.
Possible.
Hustle hard and get that money. Peace.
Peace.